here today to talk about Black Sabbath and the song, my god, this is a slippy bass, isn't it? The song Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. I'm Carl here at carlstaceyguitartuiton. And yeah, just thought I'd play some bass today. It's nice to mix it up every so often. I mainly play guitar, I like to play bass, and I also teach bass, so yeah, it's good to bring bass into the content every so often. Anyways, the song Black Sabbath is the thing I just played at the very start of this video right here, right now. And I want to talk a little bit about how this series about how these songs or how these bands in general sort of change genres or change like kind of the history of music in some kind of specific way. We've done different genres. You can find them on my channel if you want to go and check those out. I've had a lot of fun doing these videos. And as I say, today is about specifically heavy metal, kind of traditional heavy metal from back in the day. And obviously when I think about the originators of heavy metal, and I think about heavy metal at its purest, at its best, at its finest, I will always give credit to Black Sabbath for that. Ozzy Osbourne in general, of course, but of course initially Black Sabbath. And we're going all the way back to 1970 right now. So that riff that I've just played right there is the initial riff for the song Black Sabbath, as I say, from that very first Black Sabbath album from 1970. And I remember hearing that riff for the first time. My dad played it, / showed me it or something like that, because it's obviously quite simple with just 3 notes. When I was a beginner kind of guitar player, it was easy to pick it up and play it. And I remember just, obviously, at the time I didn't know any music theory, I didn't know much about music. All I knew was, oh yeah, that kind of sounds evil, that kind of sounds menacing, that kind of sounds somber, things like that. So I could only go off like what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling in that capacity. Obviously, later down the line when I started studying music and working in music, later finding out that you've got sort of that tritone, kind of diminished kind of tonality to that riff and to the notes and to the intervals of the riff. And the fact that that in and of itself, if you trace the kind of originators back of the history of those intervals, essentially, I remember reading a fact about it once, that it was once kind of banned in England or in the English church, something like that, because it was associated with the devil or summoning the devil or Satanism, these types of things, okay? So it's very, very kind of interesting to think that whether it was intentional or not, Black Sabbath creating that riff, writing that song, using those specific intervals and those specific notes that I've just mentioned, being the kind of tritone diminished thing, really kind of did something and said something for music of the time, because it's, again, we're going all the way back to 1970. It was very different. We're very culturally aware of many different genres in 2025, and genre blending and extreme genres as well. Everyone's so much more open to genres in general. Songs that have screaming in them, songs that have heavy parts, guitar solos, all these types of things. Even like the casual music fan or listener is much more open to those things, way more than anyone ever has been or anything like that in the past of music and culture and things like that. So yeah, playing those notes, writing that song, being the band that is Black Sabbath, was just such a bold statement in 1970 with that song, with that album. And that is what obviously changed the music, right? It changed history. They created a genre, heavy metal. And think about like every single hundreds of millions of thousands of bands that have formed and been created, and then the inception of all of those things that have happened just because of essentially this riff, this song, this album, this band. It's absolutely incredible, the influence and the everlasting kind of heritage of that music style, branching off of that initial riff and that initial album. And obviously you've got the other things that go along with it, like the album cover at the time was super menacing and evil looking as well, almost like a horror film, a horror kind of book type of style and look to it. Just the whole package. You've got the rain on the song at the start, really sets the scene for kind of the lyrical content and the theme of the band that is to follow from there as well. So it's just really crazy to think how such a 3-note simple riff did so much for music. It created a genre of music. It influenced thousands and millions of bands that would follow that still to this day, an entire generation plus some. And the heritage of all of that is ongoing and lives forever. So it goes to show the simplicity and the key of simplicity and how important simplicity is sometimes. Just 3 notes can change everything. 3 notes can be the difference between a good and a bad song. 3 notes can be the difference between an iconic song and a non-iconic song. 3 notes can be the difference between creating a genre of music or not. You see where I'm going with this, right? I'm a massive fan of simplicity in music and the less is more sort of attitude between kind of like songwriting and melody writing and music in general. I always like to focus on simplicity and melody. So I just find it really interesting as a musician that so much can be done with 3 notes. There's such little notes in music, there's such little chords in music, it's crazy, so much can be done with it. Still to this day, there's a lot of boundaries and things like that being pushed in those areas and those ways. So yeah, Black Sabbath, that song changed the course of metal forever. It created metal, it spawned thousands and millions of bands, and to this day, it still has an everlasting impact. So it's really awesome to just kind of be a part of that culture and that world. And for me personally, growing up with Ozzy and Black Sabbath from a really, really young age and just being kind of exposed to all of these different things as well. So yeah, some food for thought. I like talking about these things and I like delving into like where my mindset is at with those things as well. These videos aren't meant to be like super historical or factual or anything like that. It's more just a little bit of a discussion. Talking to you like I would talk to a mate or a student here at Carl Stacey Guitar Tuition, alright? So thank you very much once again for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one.